Alright, all good things must come to an end. The autofocus is back on. I accidentally hit the button. But this is one of my faves. You can see the unburnt in here, the massive burning here. And then it's actually got an unburnt strip in here. This one is very interesting here. See how the burn follows the grain around a 180-degree turn? By that I mean right here. This unburned section and this burned section goes right around here, doing a 180. You can see the rabbit the other side of the bush. That's the snake mouth. That's the snake eyeball. Here's where you can see that it's hollowed out in the middle, ready to be turned into a lamp. These little black dots show where the energy concentrates on the knots, and even not just on the knot, but on the densest part of the knot. Like here where you have little speckles. That's what I'm talking about. When you get close up, focus on the grain. It's mesmerizing. It makes you just stare because you've never quite seen anything like it. Or at least that's the effect it has on me. So we're back around to this part we started at. Maybe I'll back it up a little bit. We'll just spin it around and check out the other snake again. Ready for prime time inside. This part shows where the energy condenses. Maybe. As with all of the burn signatures on here, nothing matches a real fire. But until someone learns what it is they're looking at, they think forest fire. But once they see that this is burnt unlike any piece of wood has ever been burnt by fire in all the history of fire burning wood, which is the entire history of mankind, however long that may be, we know it's never produced a piece of wood coming out of a fire that looks like this or anything like this. Again, there's another one of those spots where you can see the end of this is much blacker, and it's even loose in there. It's kind of wiggling. Need to maybe stiffen it up. But the unburnt leading up to the blackened tip, it just gives another example of the same thing. For the learning process, we should have one or two of these in every science class across the country once we all come to the conclusion that these directed energy weapons / plasma, whatever it came from, whether it's ambient in the air or directed, hit in just about every state. Here's where you can see some of that metallic red I was talking about, and maybe a little bit better on the old dragon claw here because of the lighting. But a lot of this looks metallic, and when I'm scrubbing it down, I'm going to take a few more videos and I'm going to make one where you can see the glitter coming out of it, reflecting like glitter that you buy for party to, glue on a piece of paper with the confetti and everything. Literal glitter inside the wood when you scrub it and get it wet. And I believe that's why the metallic red look. This picture shows the spiked motif that you'll find all over the videos I once had, but YouTube has since erased. And this is part of why it burns it all down to a spike, like the one I'm holding in my hand here, where you can see all the same burn signature patterns. And that's why a lot of these small ones may be better for the mass mailing, easier for logistics. Cut a bunch of small ones, lacquer them up, and mail them out. Or just mail them out raw, let people wash and lacquer them themselves. Because that's half the fun. It's like something someone shows you or tells you doesn't sink in nearly as much as something you discover for yourself. So mailing these out and allowing people to lacquer them themselves may actually be more effective. Because you get to pull the bark, wash it off, and see what's underneath. And when you discover for yourself, there's no unlearning that. So even these little tiny ones, right? It's got all the marbled grain. It's got the dark spot right there where the next branch was going to come in. And there's some pretty big trees out there we can make real furniture out of that has all of this same grain, stain. It's unlike any stain or glaze you've seen on a cabinet. We could make trim, we could make crown mold, we could make base mold, we can make chairs. And I have a couple of places that may be ready to start on that. Since we're here, I'm going to just go over this now. That's a 100-foot tall tree that's still standing, and I'd like to go out and get it. Because, as you'll see, just like this other one I got here in my kitchen, this side is unburned. The inside of it, that's this closer side of the unburned, and then that's the far side, and on the back side of this is going to be unburned, but in between it's all hollowed out. And this other branch is just the opposite. This one is unburned on this side, but hollowed out on the back side. If you go around to the back side, it's going to be hollowed out over there. So ultimately, it's very similar to this, where it's unburned on this side, and that unburned side actually kind of curves around. We'll pull this out and give you a little closer look, but bottom line is, there's the burnt out side, there's the unburnt side. On this one, this is the unburnt side, even though it does get black up here. That's the burnt side. And I believe the top of this tree that's still 100 foot in the air is going to turn out very similar to this, except much bigger. So on this one there's a few things. One, the obvious Baphomet motif to it all. Two, this burn line here that follows this curvature forward and back and right and left. This here shows where it drew so much more energy to the knot. Along with this is one great big knot right around the edge. And this one is totally burnt on the back side here, unburnt on the front side, and very thin, along with this stripe of unburned wood that goes here. You can see this black dot. Oh, where are we? No, we're not there. Oops. Forgive me. This black dot, I'm going to have to pick it up and swoop around here a little bit. And all the other black dots, again, that's the same plasma burn signature. you'll notice this three-dimensional protrusion that actually sticks out right there as a matching burn signature imprint right there. That's at least what it looks like to me. Because that's flat, and that's an actual three-dimensional protrusion that seems to match it. What you'll notice is kind of odd. It's almost got the goat nose here on both sides. And it's one strap away from being a face mask that you could wear for Halloween. Notice this peculiar unburned stripe. Those are what I call flames. When I'm referring to a flame in this tense, often these unburned stripes are in the shape of a flame. And that's what I'll be going over next when I show you the two identical pieces with the unburned flame shape. This right here is a very odd spot. Again, it's like the outer piece here. I'm going to have to get a little. The crack that goes in between these two, and on the outer it burned, and on the inner it's unburned. And it's almost like this piece protected this piece. There's an imprint right there of unburned that matches the burned part here, and it projected the shape of this onto that as an unburned image, like a photographic negative or something. And those occur quite often, just as I pointed out a second ago, here on this same mask, where there's almost like a photographic imprint, like the plasma was going one direction, and the burn actually leaves an imprint, like a photograph. Like that spot. Now here's the very thin spot that I was referring to. That's how thin it is. And yet it's unburned on this side and burned on that side. Very thin, less than 1 finger thick. Yet somehow it retained this piece. And that's not going to stop happening. So we just work our way through this. So there's plenty of others, just like this is a single, much like there's singles of these that I can go get. There's singles of these that you can throw right on the side of a hard hat. Buy a hard hat, remove the hard hat part, and have just the inner band, and mount this and or one of these here and a second one here, and that way you could wear the mask or just the horns, or the horns and the mask, and that would be a killer Halloween costume if you dare. Like seriously, I'm not sure if you want to attempt the mask. This one's got lots of examples of the grain, the burn following the grain. Any way the grain goes, that's the way the burn goes. And each one of these, one there, one there, one there. There's about 6 or 8 right here. There's one big one here. Here. And there's a bunch more all around here that show the effect of this type of burn that should be studied. And that way we can identify which fires are fires and which fires are attacks. Because I'm now being able to spot these patterns, just about everywhere all throughout Utah. Everywhere I've looked so far. So, I think we might also just call this one Jezebel Spirit. What do you think? It's pretty Jezebel Spirit, wouldn't you say? Hold that thought. Okay, never mind. Don't hold that thought. If it's gonna work with me, let me put it down. One thing I wished I would have done before I lacquered this one, you can see a concave here. As soon as it focuses, you will. Okay, what I meant is there's a concave part here, and on this part I didn't take out enough of the bark. And if I would have pulled out just a little bit more bark, and I still could, I could pull out the little bit of bark that remains there. And you can see there's like a undercurve right there where I could take the bark out from the other side, throw a little more lacquer on there, and both sides would then be symmetrical, and it would be burning Jezebel Spirit to the max. Right? Right. Yep. Made you look. Check this guy out. Start out with the back here where you can see the black dots. Again, some more of them right there. And then it gets really cool. Again, you can see the huge difference between the burn on one side and the unburned on the other. And explaining that is what causes a person to learn. This difference between the burn and unburn. Right here where this top piece juts out. Stark contrast, don't you think? Likewise here. A study in the flow of energy, doing an autopsy on this one piece of wood, right? If we're talking pareidolia, that's an armpit. Rabbit man does everything that a rabbit man can. Yeah, he needs mounted on a more solid base. But he's kind of cool. Again, it's about the burn signatures, not necessarily that it looks like a rabbit or a unicorn or a human hand. It's about looking at these burn signatures and trying to explain to yourself how this possibly happened. The fact that it may look like a, I guarantee I can take this one that looks like a unicorn to an equine place and they'll bite right up. They'll have no problem saying, yes, that looks like a horse to me, close enough, how much you want for it? Never seen anything like it. It's got the horse spirit in it or something, and yeah, easy sell on that one. And now that these plasma fires have hit all over Park City, I'm going to be able to go pitch my wares and let them know. I'll take you right down the street to show you where this kind of stuff happened in your own town. So here we have